All right, live from Champion Studio in Charleston, South Carolina. Welcome to Better Than Ever Live. Wherever you're watching or wherever you're listening, I hope you're making today your masterpiece. My name's Dr. David Geyer, double board certified orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, and media medical expert. I help you feel and perform your best regardless of age, injury, or whatever medical condition you have. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our now second real episode of Better Than Ever Live. Last time on Tuesday, we talked about a number of great things. We've got a lot of good stuff for you today. We're going to talk about coffee, everybody's favorite drug, everybody's favorite stimulant, and honestly, just a great beverage. We're going to talk about its role in heart disease. Then we're going to talk about dementia, which is obviously awful, and we're going to talk about maybe the role that trouble having sleep and getting to sleep and staying asleep, what role that could play in dementia, and to be fair, all causes of early death. We're going to talk about, this is my sort of fun research story, scientific article to talk about today, and that is the role of your phone, your smartphone, while you're exercising and how it might actually hurt your workouts, and it might actually hurt you. We're going to talk about that. And then we'll go a little bit deeper on one of the real dangers as far as diet and nutrition goes, and that's ultra-processed food. So a lot to get to. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on Facebook, I would love to know you're here. Just type in the comments your first name and where you are. I'd love to know where you are. I think that's great. If any of those topics interest you, either now or while we're talking about it, definitely leave those comments, and maybe at the end of the show, I'll try to respond to any questions about what we're talking about. Now, as I said last time, this is not really a show where I talk about sports injuries, exercise injuries, knee, shoulder, that kind of thing, what you do about it, how you treat it, that kind of thing, because honestly, I did that for 10 years on my website and YouTube and everywhere else. And I just don't do that as much anymore. Now that I've been a medical expert for 2 TV stations and do a lot that way, I do more health and wellness information, which is what this show is. Things like exercise, nutrition, fitness, sleep, aging, mental health, men's, women's, children's health, that kind of thing. Things that help you feel better and live longer. If you go down into the description in both YouTube and Facebook, you'll see a link to somewhere where I do once a month talk and answer about sports and exercise injuries. So definitely check that out. But I would love to hear from you about any of this. Always remember, though, I am giving you this information for educational and informational purposes. I'm not your doctor. You're not my patient. I haven't seen you, examined you, looked at any studies, anything like that. So this is not specific medical advice. Anything I'm going to talk about, coffee, sleep, or anything else, this is not specific medical advice. If you have specific medical questions and medical concerns, please talk to your doctor. All right, let's start today. We're going to talk a little bit about coffee. This is one of my favorite things ever. I started drinking coffee when I was I think I was a freshman in college. I had an 8 a.m. calculus class. I made it like 3 weeks getting to class, no trouble, before you start going to bed at midnight and 12:30 and 1 o'clock, and then all of a sudden I'm struggling to stay awake, especially when I was lifting weights at 7 in the morning. Started drinking coffee. First day I put sugar in it. After that I just went black coffee, and I've been that way pretty much the whole time. I love coffee. I've worked myself down from a peak of about 6 cups of coffee a day about 8-9 years ago now to 1, maybe 2 cups of coffee a day. But I am not alone. I would suspect, I don't know the numbers, but hundreds of millions of people in this country and billions worldwide drink coffee. Here's the thing. There was an interesting study presented just last week at the European Society of Cardiology. And what they did, they looked at all sorts of different foods and drinks to try to figure out what might play a role in heart disease and stroke, which, to be fair, heart disease and stroke are 2 of the 5 leading causes of death in this country. So if there are certain foods or certain drinks that help with that or that hurt that, that's obviously good to know. Well, they in particular wanted to look at coffee. So what they did is that they basically identified out of 469,000 people, data that they had on what they ate, what they drank for huge numbers or huge periods of time. What they found was that people that drank anywhere from half a cup of coffee a day to 3 cups of coffee a day get these health benefits. 12% lower risk of early death for any reason. I mean, that's right there a pretty good reason to drink coffee. 17% lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease. That's your heart attacks, cardiac arrest, and 21% lower risk of stroke. Again, half a cup of coffee a day to 3 cups of coffee a day. Now, why, you might ask, would coffee be beneficial? If anything, it gets your heart moving, and maybe that's a bad thing. Interestingly enough, in the same study, they did MRIs of 30,000 people that they were studying in that study. And what they found is, compared to people who didn't drink coffee, the people who did drink coffee had healthier sized hearts, bigger hearts, and better functioning hearts. So coffee seems to sort of slow or prevent some of the age-related decline to your heart, which is a tremendous thing. Now, I'm not going to go into tremendous detail about my thoughts about caffeine. You heard me sort of say that I'm trying to get myself down, and I'm still trying to get it lower. I'll explain a little bit why that is in future shows. I kind of would feel that 2 cups of coffee a day max. I know it's got a ton of performance benefits, mental, physical benefits, lower risks of some cancers, things like that. There are far worse drinks to have than coffee, and it can be beneficial, but most people are drinking it because their bodies are addicted to it and they can't start a day without it. If you can get to where you're just doing it because you like it, not because you need it, I promise you coffee is a great beverage when used that way. So I'll talk more about that sometime in the future. All right, now I want to talk about something a little more sad, unfortunately, and that is dementia. 5 million Americans, 5 million adults in this country have dementia, are living with dementia. You might have a parent or grandparent or have had at some point dealing with dementia. It's a really, really sad problem. Well, for a long time, scientists, physicians, they've been trying to figure out what the causes of dementia are, why some people get it, why some don't. And one of the sort of the newer theories, or one of the newer factors that people have been looking into, is sleep, and specifically troubles with sleep. As I talked about 2 days ago when I talked about sleep deprivation and how long of an effect that has on your mental performance, and we talked about how to fix your sleep, I mentioned that I struggle, not so much falling asleep, I do that fine, but I wake up a lot in the middle of the night. Last night, for instance, woke up at 1:33 in the morning, asked, Siri what time it was because I knew it was the middle of the night, and sure enough, 1:33 in the morning, and that happens to me a lot. Is that type of thing a problem where you're waking up a lot in the middle of the night, or you have trouble falling asleep at night? Well, there was a new study just published in the Journal of Sleep Research, and this wasn't looking at so much teenagers, young adults. This is more middle-aged and older adults, but looking at the link between trouble falling asleep or trouble staying asleep and the risk of later dementia and really early death from any cause. And I'm going to read you these numbers, but it's really horrifying. People who struggle to fall asleep, and this isn't just struggle to fall asleep once, this is on a fairly consistent basis most nights. The people that struggle to fall asleep, 44% increased risk of early death from any cause, 49% increased risk of dementia. Scary, right? My problem, people who often wake up in the middle of the night and struggle to get back to sleep, 56% increased risk of early death, 39% increased risk of dementia. Definitely scary on my part, and why I care so much about fixing my sleep. People that have both problems, and I can't even imagine functioning if you have trouble falling asleep and trouble staying asleep. But if you have trouble with both, 56% increased risk of dementia, 80% increased risk of mortality. Now, I talked Tuesday about Nick Littlehales, the world's sports sleep expert. Fantastic book called Sleep, The Myth of 8 Hours, The Power of Naps, and something else. But I told you a very simple strategy for sort of getting your sleep under control. Definitely check that out. But it's great because you can be flexible. If one night you're not going to be able to get a lot of sleep, you can make up with it a nap the next day or 2 days later. It's very flexible. So if you travel a lot, or have to entertain, or maybe you perform for whatever reason at night, or you work at night, it's really great. So Nick Littlehales, you can go on to Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I don't get a commission on that. I've just interviewed him. He's a fantastic guy. But you've got to get your sleep under control. Ignoring the dementia stuff, and its lack of sleep is linked to a number of different health conditions. But as an orthopedic surgeon and somebody that takes care of a lot of sports teams, sleep plays a large role in your performance as well. So it's something to really get under control. And then speaking of performance, my interesting story of the day, my fun story, but also one I find sort of personally interesting, is about phones and smartphones. You've probably been to the gym and people between sets are staring at their phones. People are running and you hear them talking to somebody else. It's crazy how many people do it. Not the gym where I work out now, but the 2 gyms before that. I was at basically a Gold's Gym, and before that a Pivotal Fitness, big, large gyms, and people would just be on their phones forever, and they'd end up taking like 5 minutes between sets, and you couldn't use the equipment. Just drove me bananas. So I joined a very small gym that's just for power lifters and bodybuilders. And yeah, I get it. Look at me. I am not a power lifter or bodybuilder, but I love it because everybody takes this seriously. Nobody's on their phones between sets texting, except maybe me. This morning at 5 a.m., I'm sort of recovering from an injury, so I was texting somebody between sets. And that got me thinking, what is the role of your smartphone in terms of how it affects your workout? And so let's talk about that. There were 3 studies about this that I want to talk about. First was in a journal called Plus One. They looked at people who were either texting or talking to somebody on the phone while they were walking or while they were running on a treadmill. The people that were walking or that were texting or talking on the phone while either walking or running on a treadmill were slower than people who didn't do that, and they had lower average heart rate, so they weren't getting as good of a workout. All right, what about people like me lifting weights? Is it a big deal if you text or do something like that, check social media between sets of weightlifting? Well, sure enough, it actually is bad for you. There was a study where they had participants do this 15.9 kilogram weight, whatever, that's what, 35 pounds, and they did it for 30 minutes, but they had them stop for short periods of time to text or do some other phone distraction. Their strength output when they got back to the set dropped. So you think, all right, I'm just going to text real quick and then I'll get back to my workout. But it gets you out of that mental zone that you're in with exercise, and you don't maybe push as hard. I don't know, but it seems to affect how hard you work, how good your performance is. And then last, what's near and dear to my heart, because I'm an orthopedic surgeon, final study, the journal is Performance Enhancement and Health, looked at people who were texting either while walking or running. And what they found is postural stability dropped 45%, meaning you're more likely to fall and you're more likely to get hurt. Now, all of that sounds awful, all right? I'm not going to use my phone working out. Well, there are some good things about working out with your phone. There are studies that show that listening to music while you work out, and it really doesn't matter the type of workout, that makes you work out harder and it improves your enjoyment. And let's be fair, enjoyment of exercise is why people keep coming back to do it some more. So exercise is good. The key needs to be that you put that phone away, that maybe by Bluetooth, and yeah, I know the risks of EMF, that's a whole other subject, but have your phone playing somewhere else so that you can hear it through your headphones, your AirPods, whatever it is, but you're not able to text, you're not able to do social media and that kind of thing. What's funny about my bodybuilder, powerlifter gym, whenever you go in there, if there's 5 people in there, I'm always like, wow, it's really crowded today. I mean, it's really not very crowded. And again, it's all these really huge guys and women. I mean, they're amazing. But when I first started working out there, and this was like 3 months ago, I noticed all these wooden little things. I couldn't figure out what they were. Well, what they are phone stands. So at my gym, because people are like enormous and huge, they have this wall where you get to post your squat or your deadlift or your bench press if you want to show off how much you lifted. Like a guy the other day deadlifted 800 pounds. But for him to get to put his name on that wall, he had to video himself doing it and put it on their Instagram and tag the gym. So I want to go to the gym owner like, look, you might actually be hurting how much they can lift by distracting them on their phones and with social media. I don't think I'll get anywhere with it, but those people are serious. Maybe they can sort of drown out the text distractions more than I can, but it's just an interesting thing. Consider that. Put your phone somewhere else, play the music so you hear it and it motivates you, but you're not distracted while you're actually working out. And then the last thing we're gonna talk about today is ultra-processed foods. And this is kind of an interesting thing. And I'll tell you why I find this interesting here. That's really interesting. My gym, not allowed while working out. It's funny, Gold's Gym, when I was there, they had somewhere, if you were going to talk on the phone at least, you had to go to this one part of the gym. Now, to be fair, a lot of people didn't do it, but I'm all for gyms that say you can't use your phone while working out. All right, back to ultra-processed foods. These are the packaged foods, bags, boxes, things like that. And specifically what I want to talk about is sugar and added sugar in cookies and just all these pre-processed foods and fast foods for that matter. There was a study, it's a combination research program. It's like 100 different institutions, health organizations around the country. They just published their research in the journal Circulation. And what they figured out is that if you cut the sugar that's in packaged foods just by 20%, and if you cut the processed and the packaged sugar in drinks, soft drinks, sodas, that kind of thing, if you cut the sugar by 40%, we would cut about 2.5 million cardiovascular events every year in this country. That's strokes, heart attacks, cardiac arrests. We'd prevent about 500,000 deaths from cardiovascular disease, and we'd prevent 750,000 cases of diabetes. It would save over $4 billion in healthcare costs over 10 years in this country. If that isn't bad enough, another study that also came out, European Society of Cardiology, some Greek researchers looked at ultra-processed foods, again, fast foods, prepackaged meals, prepackaged snacks, things like that. If you eat any of that just once a week, you increase your risk of heart disease. For each additional time you eat a prepackaged snack or prepackaged food during the course of the week, you increase your risk of a cardiovascular event within the next decade by 10% just for one additional prepackaged meal or snack. Now, it would be easy for me to sit here and say, all right, well, just look at the nutrition labels, and if you see sugar on there, that's bad. Don't do that. And you'll see tons of that if you read nutrition labels. But it isn't just sugar. That's called a lot of different things. These are the different ways that sugar is hidden in your processed foods, in your ultra-processed foods. It's called brown sugar, cane juice, corn syrup, dextrose, fructose, fruit nectars, glucose, high fructose corn syrup, that's a huge one, lactose, malt syrup, maltose, maple syrup, molasses, raw sugar, and sucrose. Those are all added sugar. Now you may sit there and say, all right, well, wait a second. Fruits are sugars. Vegetables get turned into sugars. Grains, whole grains get turned into sugars. And that is true. And that's why there's a number of diets that really limit that as well. But at least with those, there's usually some fiber, which helps make you feel full, and maybe some vitamins and minerals, just generally a little bit better. This is why it matters to me. We talked 2 days ago about, maybe switching up your diet. Maybe there's not one diet that's better than the others, but if you switch it up and you're metabolically flexible, that's a good thing. Here, what I would probably say, and I've said this to people, if you want to lose weight and feel great, this is not easy. So I'm not saying you should do this, but if all you did was give up gluten, give up dairy, and give up sugar, you're going to do great. You're going to feel great. You're going to lose weight, lose fat. You're going to be great. That's easier said than done. But if you're going to start with anything, just stop the processed foods, the fast foods at restaurants and in airports, pretty much everything there. When you go to the grocery store, it's not buying anything that comes in a bag or a box. And yes, I know I don't know if they're going to watch, but anybody in the food industry is going to hate me for saying that. I wrote an article about sports drinks and energy drinks for a swimming magazine one time, and the American Beverage Association or the American Beverage Council, something like that, wrote this scathing letter to the editor saying these drinks can be healthy and blah blah blah. Most of those are just all sugar. And so that I'm just saying, if you're trying to be healthier, cut down on it at least, or cut them out. Ultra processed foods, things that comes in a bag or in a box, soft drinks and sodas, or just sugary drinks, fruit punches and things like that aren't real fruit, that are just basically fruit flavored and sugar. They're going to make you much, much healthier. Again, if you can't get rid of it, at least cut them down. So that is all I have. Let me look through if anybody has any comments about any of that. Certainly let me know. Love talking about this kind of stuff, and we do it every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm still sort of trying to figure out, I'm going to stick with 5, even though I've heard from a number of people here on the East Coast US, they're driving home, so they can't watch and participate live. Facebook, LinkedIn, or Facebook and YouTube, hopefully LinkedIn soon, hopefully Instagram soon, and maybe some others. But if you can't watch live, this is put on as an audio form, as a recorded audio, as a podcast. So wherever you get your podcast, check out Better Than Ever Live, the podcast, and you'll at least get to hear all of the discussions. If you're listening to this on podcast and you do want to comment, you want to get in touch, definitely subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/Dr. David Geyer. Click the bell to be notified when I'm on live, or on Facebook, facebook.com/Dr. David Geyer. I do have something cool coming for you, hopefully by Tuesday when we are on live again. I am working on a new ebook called Better Recovery, 18, I forget the subtitle. It's something to the effect of 18 lesser known, newer treatments for bone and joint pain, osteoarthritis, that type of thing that you probably won't hear about from your doctor or your orthopedic surgeon. Sort of new ways to get over bone and joint injuries. So I'll talk more about that next week. Hopefully, certainly sometime soon. It'll be completely free, but it's definitely worth checking out. And then last, if you do have a bone or joint injury question, knee, shoulder, hip, ankle, elbow, whatever it is, it's not that I've just sort of transitioned away from that, but I'm still an orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine specialist. It's what I do in my practice. So I do try to help, but because of the volume of questions I get and from some legal issues on social media generally, I only do that in one place, betterthanever.locals.com. It's on the Locals platform. Supporters of that community get access to a video chat with me, and I answer your questions. It's really, really good. And if you're a premium supporter, you can actually message me directly through that system. Thank you so much for joining. I just love talking about health and wellness information because this is the stuff I care about. I am trying to live, hopefully to 100 or past that, and feel great, do everything I want to do the whole way. I don't want to be using a walker or struggling to get out of a chair. So this stuff matters to me, and I hope it matters to you. So thank you so much for joining me, I should say, and I will see you right back here Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Better Than Ever Live. Thanks a lot.